on, Waf? Happy Monday, sir.
Happy Monday. Seems like deja vu all over again. Bitcoin pumping on a Monday.
Dude, I know. We might just have to do a repeat of Wake and Jake, though, the way these shit coins are pumping right here. I got the loose chart pulled up in front of me. Was waiting for a pullback to buy a dip, and it just has not come. So, it's just shitcoin mania today.
I think everything just come back today. Once Bitcoin goes up, everything else just seems to fly even more so. Like during the week, we had, I want to say, like downward pressure on price, on runes, on ordinals, on Bitcoin, but then yeah, today we break through 67, 68. We break through 69. We touch 70. And now we're just kind of like a little bit under 70. Let's see if we could finally like close a day over 70 this week. That'll be interesting to see if we can actually do that because we've been flirting with this range for a long time. And we could still get rejected again, although I think it would be temporary if it does happen. Um, but we could also just shake loose. I mean, we're at October 28th, and October has felt muted, and it might just be a crazy run these last few days to end the month over 70K.
Yeah, well said, Waf. I mean, I definitely think that you were going to see a continuation here. It definitely seems like the market's getting pretty bullish, just everything up across the board. Doge, Bitcoin, everything's running pretty aggressively here. Ordinal's still kind of quiet, but definitely seeing a little bit of a rotation into runes. But I do agree with you. I mean, if ever Bitcoin looked ready to break through 70K, I think it looks like prime right now. Just to start the week on a Monday with a ton of momentum here. And it seems like some of that war news got shaken off a little bit, or we're just not really prioritizing it as much. Um, so, not too surprised to see the dip get eaten up. And I definitely think if we do finally cross 70K and hold that, we might see a lot of stuff going towards all time highs. As we've talked about before, the markets tend to get discouraged and a little bit hesitant. Like we've seen this range tested a few times and then selling off. So, if it does get to a point where we pass through with strength, I would imagine there's going to be a lot of FOMO back into some runes and some ordinals.
Yeah, we do have the elections coming up next week too, so that might be the only remaining headwind. Although I think once we kind of clear the elections, I think we might see stuff like really start running, or at least the potential for that to happen. I think is significant, like right after the elections.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, a lot of it is going to be headline based, right? So we'll see who wins the election. We'll see if they directly mention any crypto or crypto policy. We'll definitely see if any changes are made in terms of the SEC. I know there's, some potential there that Gary Gensler gets kicked out of office. So we'll see. A lot of it is just going to be very headline driven. I'm sure we're going to get a lot of volatility in both directions leading into the election and then following it. And then, usually after November, we start to get into that Santa Claus rally range. So I definitely wouldn't be surprised if we, get a little bit of a dip or some chop leading through the election. And then if we pick up some steam going into next year. So TBD, definitely a lot to anticipate and, keep some money on the sideline for to see if a good opportunity presents itself. But at least today and this week, it looks like we definitely want higher.
Yeah, I think in like my personal opinion, I think if should Kamala win, I still think it'll be bullish. And then I think if Donald Trump wins, it'll be like super bullish. And if you go back to 2016, that elections, and I don't know if you remember, but I do remember, like when it looked like Trump was winning and it was gonna become president, the markets like absolutely tanked like that night of the elections. And it was like the biggest fake out ever. And the next day everything pumped like super high. So I wouldn't put a fake out past anyone at this moment, whether it's Kamala, whether it's Donald Trump. I could totally see the market going like hard in the wrong direction before it reverses and goes the other way.
Yeah, completely agree. And I mean, so much of it is just dependent on what is priced in or not, right? Because like when Trump won, none of that was priced into the market because I think the polling said he had like a 3% chance to win. So the market really reacted and wasn't sure how to process that. we've definitely seen the market correct a lot over the past couple of months. So it's hard to say how much of that is waiting on which candidate is going to win the election, but we'll find out. Like the market's definitely baking in whoever it expects to win the election. So there's a chance that the price is already baked in for a lot of this movement. But with an election that's this close, there's really I don't think you can fully bake in the election outcome. So I'm sure we're going to just see a lot of different movements. A lot of different players are going to react differently to headlines and news and whatever policies get passed in the first couple of weeks. So we'll definitely see. I think it's a little tricky to forecast it exactly. So I think we just got to like watch and wait is probably the best guidance here.
Yeah, I agree with you. I would say the only thing we do know for certain is whoever is president, debt is going up only, spending is going up only, and those are two things that are always good for Bitcoin. So like that's what we do know, regardless of who's president. And it's just a matter of how they decide they want to spend the money, whether it's tax cuts or like welfare programs or whatever. Either way, there's going to be a ton of deficit spending and debt up only. That's it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I mean, you still have the issue of inflation. And as inflation continues, it seems like that's honestly bullish for Bitcoin just because people want a finite resource that they can park money into. So I definitely agree with you. I think there's a lot of positive catalysts for crypto going into it. I would just say, if we do enter a recession here for whatever reason, that would probably be bearish crypto just because people are going to be forced to sell assets of some form. And I mean, you see like a lot of this stuff runs in tandem. I don't think we've really seen yet the separation of traditional markets with crypto as much as there does seem to be sort of like a bifurcation, at least with sentiment and people talking about it. The S&P is still pretty much at all-time high and crypto is pretty much at all-time high, at least in the term of Bitcoin or close to it. So, it'll be interesting. I don't really think we're going to see those depair from each other or decorrelate quite yet. So, if there is a correction in the traditional markets, I wouldn't be too surprised if crypto comes with it, at least for now.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I caught a little bit of Wake and Jake this morning too, and they were mentioning sort of like just the overall degeneracy of the markets. Like everyone's kind of gambling on meme coins. I mean, but that's like all over the place. Whether it's the just gambling on sports or whatever the case may be, I think people are looking for those like asymmetric bets, or they're just behind. Generally speaking, like things cost a lot of money, and they're looking for like another way out. So. They're willing to gamble because like their 9 to 5's not cutting it. So I just think we're gonna see more of the same, probably like up and up a notch to another level, whether it's crypto, whether it's meme coins, whether it's just basic gambling. I just think people we've entered that like level of degeneracy as a society where we're just willing to bet to like make those millions, right? And like kind of get out of the hamster wheel race, right? And I think everyone's down with that. And you see that all over X, you see that just all over society. So regardless, whatever happens, people are gonna still gamble, I think. So that's why crypto is gonna always be relevant, in my opinion.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think it just has, such high multipliers that exist out there. And a lot of it has a little bit more of a straightforward narrative than options, right? Because like you can get some pretty crazy returns with options, but I think it's a lot harder to forecast sort of where these catalysts are going to come from because they're just like such huge companies that you're betting on. So like Tesla going up 10% and you making 5 to 10x on a same day option, like that's great, but you're kind of just at the whim of the market. Versus in crypto, where you get stuff like these meme coins that come out, and maybe you have an influencer that comes out, or just like a real world tweet that pairs to it. Like this loose token that came out today is the perfect example. The Vatican comes out with an official mascot. This coin launches and it's up like 5x in 12 hours. So something like that, I feel like the average participant has a much better likelihood of making money, seeing the clear narrative forward, understanding kind of what the catalyst for it might be, and then actually being able to lock in profit on those trades. So obviously there is a lot of crypto that becomes PvP at a certain point. So I don't think every participant is making money in crypto where, it used to be we're all going to make it. And I think most participants were making money. I think it's changed a little bit, but in terms of just that 5 to 10x to 100x potential, I don't think you're going to find it anywhere else but crypto. So I totally agree with you. I think it's always going to be relevant and you're always going to see a good amount of participants trading.
Yeah, it's definitely PvP. I just want to like highlight Doge for example today. I mean, Doge is up almost 13%, and it's the number 9 coin by market cap, right? When you count Tether and USDC, like if you or in like staked ETH, if you take those out, like then Doge is like number 6 with like a 23 billion market cap. So when it goes up 10% in a day, it's adding pretty much $250 million of market cap, which is crazy to me. You think about like all these meme coins that we play around with, like they don't even in that one day that Doge went up, these meme coins are like not even close to that market cap in just the daily gain of Dogecoin.
Dude, totally agree, and great shout out with Doge. I actually got in, I think, on last week's Wake and Jake when Jake shouted out, so shout out Jake. But yeah, I mean, things are absolutely ripping, and that's crazy that it moves so much on such a large market cap. And it's just gotten crazy volume. At least we can, assume that just based on the price movement. So when you look at such a huge market cap moving up that much, like smaller market caps are going to be moving like crazy in just this bull environment. And it's great that we do have those leading tokens to point to with Bitcoin and Doge and Solana, and just saying like, wow, if these things are moving 10% in a day, a meme coin could absolutely move 500% a day, no question.
Which brings me to the micro caps, where I think the runes meme coins is might be like the ultimate like bet in this next meme coin cycle, because these runes are all hovering well under 100 million, some as low as 50, even 10, right? And these things can absolutely fly once Magic Eden like implements its swap. It's already got the anti-sniping measures. Magic Eden, look, Ape Chain just went up on Magic Eden, and it's making like all their NFT sales very easy, very nice and smooth, right? Because Magic Eden is easy to use. And once Runes is at that level, which I think is literally right around the corner, um, the fact that you have meme coins on Bitcoin, the mother chain, and these caps are like sitting there at such minuscule market caps, I think Runes is going to be the ultimate like life changing money coming up in the next few months.
Yeah, wow. I mean, I totally agree with you, dude. Um, we've obviously talked about runes a lot, and I think you just have to have that perspective of ordinals and Bitcoin being a slower chain. And it's not just the transaction speed, it's just everything. Like ordinals from when they were first called out in MVHQ, like it took months and months and months for those to really heat up and have that blow off top, and just have these exaggerated returns where people bought stuff for 0.01 Bitcoin or less and then ended up getting half a Bitcoin for them. So just absolutely crazy returns on ordinals themselves. Runes, obviously, a little bit more recent than ordinals, just a couple of months old, but they really do have that oversized return because there's just not a lot of holders. There's not a lot of inflows into them. So you could definitely see with Solana, there's just like these, pardon my French, dog shit coins that come out and reach like 20, 40 million market caps. I mean, just look at the AI meta, right? There was just so many coins. Some of them I definitely think were well deserving in terms of these valuations because it's a new meta. But just some of these like beta plays and stuff, they were still reaching 20 plus $1 million market cap in a matter of a couple days. So when you see runes and you know that there's already a really core community of people who believe in them, who tweet about them, who really spend most of their time in crypto around those runes. But to your point, right, there's still like sub 10 million. I think it really is just waiting for more adoption from other people and easing that access into those tokens. And then you're going to start to see some runes really taking off. And I really think the main thing that's missing is just that first mover, because we've seen from cycle to cycle that it's really like a first mover that sends everything. And you can go back, just a month ago, Moodang really picked up a lot of steam, and suddenly it's like, hey, we might be back. And then you saw animal tokens, you saw a whole rotation. But in my mind, Moodang was sort of the first mover from this cycle for shitcoins, and it led the way for everything else. So I think if we, draw that parallel to meme coins, which I think most runes are, if you just wait for that one that's going to take off and reach 100 mil and people are going to make crazy returns on that, once that happens, people are going to talk about it. And then people in Twitter can speculate in further. And that's when I really think you're going to see these 5 to 10 million market caps start going bananas, as you would say. So yeah, I think it's just waiting for that first mover, but absolutely the dominoes are set to have a massive gain at some point.
Yeah, I think these meme coins, they like capture like momentum like coming down a mountain like a snowball, and that just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Because like the bigger like a meme coin gets, the more it attracts people. So I was just looking at this article that I dropped in VC chat. It's like a Q&A with Bonk Guy. So Bonk Guy is someone who turned $16,000 into an $18 million position on Bonk, and like has not sold it yet. And his insight is saying like he thinks runes is also going to be the next biggest thing for meme coins. And I kind of just dropped like what he said about like why his thesis is on that. And he basically said it's very simple. The narrative alone is big. Bitcoin is orders of magnitude bigger than Solana and every other chain out there. And if meme coins work on Bitcoin, then like it should achieve like a similar parity in comparison to like the meme coins and the growth of on other chains. So I think that's like a pretty solid thesis, and it's been what we've been saying all this time. As far as like who's gonna be the catalyst, like I know Dog is up there as far as like the highest market cap. But it feels forced, doesn't feel natural. I think it's gonna be $1 billion cat, especially with this whole cat meta that we've been like seeing for the past year or so. If $1 billion cat could cross that $100 million threshold, get to a billion, then maybe that's the one that reaches escape velocity and starts messing with the big meme coins on other chains.
Yeah, well said, man. And I agree. I think dog seems a little bit forced. I do think billion dollar cat could certainly lead the meta, but it could be some of these smaller ones. Since our last episode, I've kind of just gone through. We had a really large pullback on runes this past week. We also have had a pretty large pullback on ordinals, which, in my opinion, is sort of exciting just because I've been waiting for it, like especially puppets in particular. I've just kind of been waiting to find a good entry, and I think we're closing in on it here. But I personally have just been really, really into Psycho Hamster more and more. I definitely was a big Psycho Hamster guy last rune cycle. I'm considering sort of the death of runes and rebirth a cycle here. But I just see more and more communities paying homage to Psycho Hamster with some of the stuff they do. I see them get a lot of credit for continuing to build, and like they have just not stopped relentlessly on that. So I think, Psycho Hamster definitely has a lot of appeal. And given that it's about $5 million market cap, I think it's got a great risk reward there. So something like that feels a little bit more memey to me than just Doggo to the moon, which agreed feels sort of forced. Billion dollar cat, I definitely think will have its time in the sun, and is already just a super successful play. But I think I'm looking more at like the Psycho Hamster aspect of it's just a little bit more memey than the others, and kind of have a comedy value to it, which could appeal to some people.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much opportunity here. I think like we did have a pretty big pullback on ordinals and runes, but if you look at just the last 24 hours, right, just the last day, um, almost everything's back up again, right? So the correlation with Bitcoin is real. I mean, like the fact that Bitcoin price was kind of like languishing all week probably like instigated the sell off in ordinals and runes after like those run ups. But now that Bitcoin is back with potential of going over 70 and maybe higher, I just think these runes and ordinals start ripping again. Like look at puppets. I mean, I think that got down to like 0.12, maybe even a little bit lower, and now it's already back at 0.138. So these things are highly correlated to Bitcoin. Um, and I think we're seeing that play out. Like even Gizmo, Imaginary Kittens up 20% today. Puka cannot be stopped up 31%. So these things got hammered during the week, and now they're like making their second runs.
Yeah, and great call on Puga. That's another one that I went. I think that's my biggest rune holding right now. I don't have like a tremendously large holding of runes. I have a pretty large holding of wizard that I've scaled out to above six. But yeah, I bought just like an absolute crap ton of Puka over the weekend because I saw it just sliding down from its $10 million high. So a 50% retracement on that. The biggest thing I looked at there was just volume going into it. I saw it had like over a Bitcoin of volume every single day, which in my mind I think is pretty substantial, just given like the market cap on these runes are pretty low. And if you just look at the activity that some of the leading ordinals have, like node monkeys or puppets, they have a few Bitcoin a day. So to see that flowing into a $5 million market cap rune, I definitely took a pretty big position there with Puka. I think it'll, go back to its all-time high and maybe even then some with Bitcoin hopefully reaching an all-time high soon. So for me, it just seemed like a great swing trade. Definitely gonna take my initials out if it goes back to 10 million and then swing trade the rest up as long as that'll go.
Yeah, actually added to my puka bag as well, and then I kind of sold off significantly my portion of Gizmo. So I pretty much almost fully cashed out that trade. And I still like it. I just think it's still a great rune to be in and probably be in and out of. I just wanted to take my profits off of it, but I'm still looking at it for like a re-entry at some point. Maybe if it could get down to like 20 sats, I might be interested again. Um, and then everything else I'm just kind of holding. Haven't seen anything new pop up recently that has captured my attention as far as like new rune mints. I think it got a little saturated with the new mints, so now I'm just gonna kind of focus back on sort of like the tried and tested, the tried and true right now. And I think same thing for ordinals. Like I made a play last week on ordinals on uncoded, and I just took a bath on that thing, and I just realized that just too early on ordinals. I think these new collections, these new mints, you just still got to be a little bit leery of for now.
Yeah, that's a great shout, Laugh. I actually played another one here, and let me just try to remember the name. Yeah, Insurgents by Debauchery. I really like the art for this one, honestly, and it definitely seemed like they had some KOL working with them. They also had some pretty decent art in my perspective. They had a lot of memes that came out of it, and they just had these fun frogs. A little biased just because I like frogs. But I bought 3 of them as the price went down on mint. Kind of figured they would mint out, and then at that point the price would go up, but there really wasn't much there. And I think, it's no knock to the people who are doing it, but it just seems like it's a very Jeet heavy ecosystem, right? Like I think this is kind of what you saw price action wise with Solana NFTs towards the end of their phase. I do think ordinals will come back in favor, and you'll see a little bit more diamond handing. But in Solana, you just saw like way too many new mints, and people were selling for like zero point 0.3 Solana profit. So for debauchery, it was just like people were selling it for 0.0001 profit. So maybe like 60 or $70, which again, no shade, get your profit. But with just seeing so many people sell for small profit, it didn't seem like there was a lot of upside there. So I bought a couple cool traits towards the floor, sniped one rare there, but I ended up selling everything for break even. Just kind of flipped out as soon as I could, saw the pending start to slow down, and just thought, yeah, it's probably not right for ordinals quite yet. So, still think the main things to do if you're playing ordinals are probably just scalp those big collections. I think Puppet has a great entry. Quantum Cat's dipped a lot, pretty good entry there. It's like I want to say at its low for the past 3 or 4 months, so definitely a decent entry there. Node Monkey's great entry. They're pretty beaten down. And then Base Angels pulled down a lot from its all-time high. So I think I would just stick to the blue chip stuff for now. And I'm definitely with you. I don't think the new stuff is really ripe quite yet.
That was another one that I swept off secondary, and I'm just pretty much bag holding at like a minus 50%. So again, just another move that's probably a little bit too early. Maybe even if you really like something that's coming out soon, just wait till the post mint hype is over and like go get it at 75% discount. Like don't even mint it. That's how I feel about these things right now. I just want to focus on node monkeys, puppets, and some of the bigger collections, frogs, quantum cats, nat cats, that kind of stuff. Bitcoin wizards. I'm not trying to mess with anything new with like any substantial amount of funds.
Yeah, I totally agree. And some of the things can be worth feelers. Like I thought that the frogs that came out this past weekend, it seemed like a decent entry when they were basically at mint price and they were clearly going to mint out. So I think there was like 20% left and the price pretty much converged to what mint price was. So at that point, I figured I'll snag a couple because once they fully mint out, we might get a little bit of a pump. And if you played it right, you could have flipped for like 0.001. But again, I just don't really think the risk reward is there, right? Like I don't want to have to pay 0.002 to make a 50% gain on something that I don't have a really strong conviction in. If it was like a more thought out play, I might take that risk reward. But yeah, I think it's just you got to read the market. And Gizmo came out of nowhere, so I'm not saying like don't pay attention to runes, don't pay attention to new mints. I think you should always be monitoring them. But like right now, I totally agree. Like I would just pay attention to what is already in existence and focus on some swing trades there.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Rune coin price is just so linked and correlated to Bitcoin. Is really like, let's just figure out what do we think Bitcoin's going to do this week, and then that kind of just makes your plays that much easier. Because if you think Bitcoin price is going to go down, then you don't buy any runes this week, right? You just sit or you sell. And then but if you think Bitcoin is gonna go up, then now you have an opportunity to buy runes and kind of it's kind of like a leverage bet on Bitcoin, right? It's like taking a Bitcoin long with like some leverage. Same thing as buying some runes right now. So figuring out whether you think Bitcoin price is going up or down should kind of be like your first thought before even like buying runes right now.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think it's also just going to depend on how much does Bitcoin go up. Because I know you and I have talked about this before, WAF, but in an event that Bitcoin just teleports to 80K or 85K, I would still, imagine a world where the price of these ordinals stays exactly the same. Because if your Bitcoin's going up, let's say 20% from here, there's a decent chance you might just want to like take your gains and you'd rather just hold Bitcoin over having it in ordinal. So I do think ordinals and runes they make the most sense when things are chopping. I think you're more likely to see runes go up exponentially than ordinals. I don't know why that is. Maybe people are just like more inclined to hold tickers because it seems more like owning a stock or something. I don't know the exact reasoning, but I would feel more comfortable owning runes if for no other reason than they're just easier liquidity wise, and you can size a little bit more tailored to your bankroll. I'd be more inclined on those than ordinals in a pump, but I definitely think once Bitcoin goes up and the dust settles a little bit, that's when I would really start getting interested into ordinals. If Bitcoin goes to the 80K plus range and settles there for a little bit, that's when I think we'll start to see a lot of movement on stuff like puppets.
You know, you mentioned like how like on Solana, people like cashing out for, you know, point 0.7 soul gain or whatever the case may be. You know, once we get this rune swap, I mean, don't be surprised that people start trading runes in volume for like not the biggest gains in the world either, right? So I would be a little leery as well of holding a lot of runes when this swap comes into effect, only because I could just see like a lot of dumping happening. And then whereas I think with ordinals, it's not that easy to dump. And if people make a lot of gains on runes, they like if they don't park their money in Bitcoin, they might buy like that ordinal that was out of reach for them, you know, a few months back. But now that they crushed it on a rune play, they can go out there and buy it. So I do think like that rotation will happen where ordinals become sort of like the, I don't know, the flex. Like I finally got my node monkey, finally got my puppet, or whatever the case may be. I think that happens like after people make gains on runes.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point there, Wow. That's totally fair because the more I think about it, credit where it's due. Murad is sort of the influencer of the cycle, and we've talked about him before. But he's really sending this SPX on ETH, pretty close to a billion here. I think it might have reached its all time high again today, and don't quote me on that. It's definitely pretty high up today, but he's called out a lot of NFT meme collections, and I'm using NFTs to encompass ordinals here as well. He does shout out ordinals, but I just remember, back in the day, what a flex it was to have like a blue chip NFT. And it was just social proof when everyone was on crypto Twitter of like, hey, I'm a good trader. You should listen to me. Or, hey, I have a big bankroll. You should listen to me. So I definitely think when this cycle gets crazier and you just see people making hundreds of thousands of dollars and millions of dollars off of meme coins, I totally agree with you. Like people are going to start racing and reaching again for these ordinals because it's just social proof. Like I think innately there's some desire to sort of showcase wealth. I mean, that's not exclusive to crypto at all, right? Just think about people with expensive watches and cars or whatever else. Like obviously there's more value to than just showing it off, but I do think part of that value comes from being able to display that. So I completely agree. I think a lot of it will become as a bunch of money is made in this cycle. Some of that's going to rotate back into NFTs because people are going to want to flex like, hey, I got it, and I think you can more easily flex a PFP than you can a bag holding of a coin.
Yeah, I agree with that. Also, Magic Eden makes these things a lot easier, right? Because you can trade every chain on Magic Eden. You can make your profile public if you want to, right? If you're into the flexing, you could go to your profile, make it public, link your Twitter, link everything, be a social media influencer. People could see what you're holding. Oh shit, this guy's got this, he got that, right? Sort of like back takes you back to like when when people had an ape, right? If you had an ape, people listened to you, even if you got lucky buying an ape, right? And same thing with like a crypto punk or something. So this flex is gonna happen. It's gonna be real. And if you made money on meme coins, at some point like the meme coin cycle will kind of die down, or even just the um the enthusiasm for that particular coin will die out at some point too, right? So you might want to like get out, get into something else, get back in when you feel like it's gonna ride back up again. Because like even like this Moodang, right? This Moodang went up to like 200 mil, 250 mil. I think it went back down to like 80, right? And then all of a sudden Binance makes that announcement that it was listing Moodang, and then they had that big green dildo candle a few days ago, and it's now back up to what, like 200 million. So these meme coins go through those big like peaks and valleys, and if you caught one at the right moment and now it's all the way up, at some point it's prudent to cash out, right? Whether you're cashing out the whole position or a significant portion of it. Like you got to take some profits, right? So it's gonna create that downward pressure, and then that money's got to go into something else, whether it's another meme coin, a ordinal flex, whatever the case may be. It's just like having that more money is going to give you like more moves to make, because you got more liquidity, so you're just going to make more moves. And I think that's what we got to be prepared for.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. And I mean, it's interesting because you do see more and more coins are going to a billion and kind of sticking there. So, I really wouldn't be surprised if some of those, if they can maintain their strength, kind of continue to incentivize people. And I do think just a big differentiation between where crypto is now and where it was in 2021, where NFTs were just like the vehicle of choice, is I think with NFTs there was sort of this expectation of, years down into the future these things are going to have value, and they're building companies and they're building IP and all that stuff's going to last. And I think now crypto is a lot more accepting, even if they don't really talk about it in these direct terms, that it's more of like a casino. And I think people understand with like meme coins that it's very PvP. And if you just look at the cycles of a lot of these, right? Like I think there are definitely tokens that come out that people expect to go to a billion. So like I think GOAT is the perfect example. I don't think many people expected it to go as high as it did within the first couple of days. But once it kept going higher and higher, I think people really realized that it could get to something like a billion. But for a lot of these other tokens that come and go, I think people really expect them to die within 48 hours, right? Like a lot of these beta plays, I don't think there's as many people who are thinking like, oh my gosh, this could go to a billion. I think they're looking to like ride it for a lot of times from, 100K market cap to 3 mil, and then they're expecting to sell it there and then have it go to zero. So I think there is sort of a different mindset from like what we're accustomed to with ordinals, where I think it's more so people like rallying around the community or whatever else. But yeah, to your point, like I think it's just whatever's hot in the market. As soon as ordinals come back in favor and new mints give people a 5 to 10x, people will go into that, and you'll see some stuff that does last and goes to crazy amounts. You'll see some ordinal collections reach a Bitcoin floor. And then you'll certainly see a lot of stuff where people just get in for, zero point 0.01, try to leave for 0.03, and then it goes to zero the next week. I think Frux was a good example of that. Definitely could have ran a lot hotter, but I think that was a good example of people, looking for like a quick 5x, and then it kind of died and never really came back.
I think you're absolutely right about meme coins being like the casino, right? And I also think like investing in meme coins it's sort of like this act of rebellion, in my opinion. Like when it comes to sort of like what society tells you is an investment and what people are investing in, right? It's sort of like, this is risky, it's not a real investment. And you got like the CNBCs of the world kind of like mocking people that are in meme coins. But then this is like crypto space, it's like basically giving like the regular market like the big fu, like saying like fuck you, like we invest in what we want to invest in, like we'll hold what we want to hold, and we'll make number go up on whatever thing we want number to go up on, right? So I think there's like this whole like act of rebellion with people that invest in meme coins. Like, I don't want to say like we're on the outskirts or the fringes of society, but in some cases we might be. And I think there's like an appeal for like that rebel to like invest in not only crypto but in meme coins as well.
Oh yeah, man. I totally agree. I mean, I think it's just like the crypto space in general in my mind is a lot of people who probably were told like they couldn't, or just like how many people out there have given the guidance like, oh yeah, you're not going to get rich overnight. And there's plenty of people in crypto who get rich overnight. So I think it definitely does take a risk taker. And I think people in crypto embrace it and they're very cavalier about it. But you nailed it. I mean, it is that type of person that says, like, all right, well, hold my beer. Like, I'm going to go for it. Right. And you see people in crypto make those trades. I think everyone is in search of the hero trade and wants to leave with 100x so they can, like, tell anyone who sold them ever that you can't make 100x. Well, I just did it and people have done it, right? Like, I think that is sort of the beauty of crypto, is that it's always possible. And for so long, people in traditional finance have kept the secrets inside, and it's, very elitist and very like, oh yeah, the common trader is going to get wrecked. But here we are. We're just a group of traders, and there's been plenty of people in MVHQ and otherwise who've just put on some bonkers trades and made a crap ton of money. So I think that that vision and that spirit is always going to be crypto.
Yeah, MVHQ is prime example. Like you just go check out success threads and you see like these outsized wins and gains. I mean, they are real and they do happen. And I think traditional finance kind of just has to sit there and cope with it, right? Because like they just don't believe it and they're not really capable of doing it. So, they just throw shade at it and they just cope. And I think that's what we're dealing with now. And then the real cope is going to hit soon when Bitcoin really flies over 70, because after 70, I think 100K is a magnet. Like I think we could be at 100K before the end of the year. I think that's really possible.
Yeah, I definitely think so as well. I'm probably more inclined to think we get closer to 80, but I think I'm probably, at least personally, expecting us to get a little bit of confusion post election. Um, we'll see. I think we're gonna definitely make some moves towards it. I would be really surprised if we don't see like 5 to 10% candles in the majors. Like, I would imagine Bitcoin at some point goes from like 72 to 80K, probably goes back to like 75K. I think as soon as it does launch past 70, you're gonna see some violent moves in both directions. So we'll see. I don't have like an exact timeline of end of year, maybe like January. I feel like it's always January of the following year is super violent for like the first 10 days, like violently up. And then a lot of the times it cools off towards tax season. So I do agree with you. I could see a world where Bitcoin reaches 100K maybe of January next year. And then it probably will cool back down, I'd imagine, to like a higher low, or sorry, a lower high at some point. So we'll see, but yeah, definitely price target is well above 70K for the end of this year. I definitely agree on that point.
Yeah, and again, if it doesn't happen by the end of the year, it doesn't really matter because we're just talking, a time frame of weeks and months of what we think is all going to happen. So does it really matter if it's 100K in December or 100K in January or 100K in February? It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, well said. I mean, it's all just kind of nitpicking to get it down to a couple of months or weeks or days. Like, I think ultimately, if you zoom out, it's still just starting off early. And I've gone through a lot of phases personally about, do I think it's going to be ETH? Do I think it's going to be Solana? I definitely think 2024 for me was like fully opening my eyes to what Bitcoin is and what it represents. So I definitely think sky's the limit there. And honorable mention to Solana, because I think it really has a tremendous amount of value towards crypto. I think the price reflects that accordingly, but I think it's got a ton of room higher because I think it just has some of the best infrastructure. Personally, I have my own feelings about like it not being truly decentralized. I think that's kind of a bummer, but I think that feeling is just completely irrelevant to what the market has priced in. And you can't fight the fact that people use it. So I think just from a user perspective, Solana has so much value because of that. And I think Bitcoin, just based on it being the OG, the founding father, as well as the finite supply, I think that has like unparalleled value. And if you can imagine a world where Bitcoin scales up a little bit to get closer to that value that Solana brings, I mean, then you're just talking about, lighting a pile of gas on fire. I think it can go so high.
I love that call. Like I love Solana this cycle. I think Solana could easily go anywhere between $750 and $1,000. And Ethereum is lagging. And again, like we talked about Ethereum in the past, like it really hasn't defined itself like what it is, right? Because is it like a base settlement layer? Is it a blockchain? Is it sort of like just another like Bitcoin, like a silver to Bitcoin's gold? Like I don't really know. And whenever it comes time for me to like sell something and cash out, I always find myself like cashing out Ethereum over like Bitcoin or Solana. Like I don't want to cash out any of my Bitcoin or any of my Solana, but Ethereum, I have like kind of like no problem parting with it.
Dude, I totally agree. I mean, it just like it blows my mind every time I bridge over to Ethereum and like send money to other wallets. It just adds up so much. Like, transacting with large amounts of ETH, like sending an ETH or two, sometimes the fee is like 10 plus dollars, which is crazy. I think about like, would I pay a $10 fee in real life? I'd probably be like, what the fuck? That's like a really high fee to do anything. So the fact that there's just these really high fees, obviously there's chains, but just bridging on and off ETH chains, there's always so many fees associated with it. It is a little bit slower than Solana, and I think the whole argument of ETH of like, oh, there's all this scalability and all these different attachments to it. So much of that is on Solana now or other chains. So I do think like my feelings of ETH have really diminished a lot. I'm not saying it's not going to have a place in value because I think it's not just going to go away. There's certainly with the ETF being established a case for inflows. But yeah, I definitely feel more bullish about other stuff than I do at ETH currently.
Yeah, I think ETH like needs that BlackRock like real world asset narrative to get going for itself because it loses to Bitcoin on sort of like store value, and then it loses to Solana on like applicate platform and blockchain application. So I just think it's like sitting in the middle somewhere. It's not really Bitcoin, it's not really Solana, it's just sort of in the middle. And with all the layer twos, not necessarily like bringing fees back to ETH mainnet. Sometimes, like whether they're using their own like coin or token or not even using ETH. Like I don't see the transaction fees like really happening on ETH anymore.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I see Aslo went off mute there. Aslo, welcome, welcome. You got anything to say?
Oh, no, I had nothing to say. Sorry, I was just I was just connecting and disconnecting. You guys are doing great. I have nothing to add.
Oh, all good, dude. Always welcome. Anyone in the audience is
Hello,
always welcome. I'm in.
GM,
What's up?
GM.
GM, what's going on, Dizzy?
Just enjoying listening to your beautiful voices. Give me bullish hope for the future. Our runes are going higher. Let's go.
Let's go. Yeah, thanks for tuning in, Dizzy. Always happy to send a little voice your way.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was great. Our rooms are really gonna run. Like, I mean, if you look at like if you go to Magic Eden and you just look at the last 7 days, you see the red, right? You could see like Gizmo's down 31% in the last 7 days, but still it's up 26% today. Puka down 42% over the last 7 days, but it's up 20% today. So there's plenty of opportunities to catch this stuff, especially after like a significant retrace, I want to say. So I'm going to be adding to my runes bags, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree, Waf. And I think I've definitely learned, and I want to say Jinzo was calling this out earlier in chat, but for a lot of these names that have already run, I just kind of wait for the pullback at this point because you usually do see a pullback at some point. I do think you have to be kind of patient with it. It is annoying sometimes because you can miss like really big up moves. But for stuff like Puka, for stuff like Gizmo, stuff that people have just made huge multipliers over the past weeks, I think just kind of waiting for a good spot that you think people will buy is always well advised. I think like just a general rule of thumb for me is just kind of wait for a pullback a little bit larger than I expected because I'll see something reach like 50 million market cap and then fall back to 45. And I'm like, oh, there's a nice pullback. And it's usually more than a 10% pullback when there is a major pullback, right? So I think for something like Puka, we just saw a 50% pullback. I feel pretty good about getting in there. I'm not going to blow my entire side pile, but definitely feel pretty good getting in on that. And then after the fact, that gives me confidence of like, cool, I'm going to scale in at a 50% dip buy. If it dips to 70%, I can buy some more. And that's when I really start to see pretty consistently if there's something that has had a large market share of attention over the past couple of weeks and it dips 70%, I'm not saying like, not financial advice, but you very often see a dip or a dip buy on those kinds of things. So I love buying stuff when it's down and just feeling comfortable scaling into a dip, especially on these runes. I think is just really well advised because if you're buying when things are really beaten up, if there was enough pressure to bring it up to crazy amounts before, I think a lot of people are going to try to protect their bag and get it close up to that spot again.
Yeah, I also like to look at, and I agree with everything you said. I always like to look at the wallet trackers to see like if I start seeing like top 10 holders or top 15 holders selling, selling, selling. I know when the whale starts selling, that sell pressure and then volume could start becoming massive. Like I want to get out before then. So and I kind of noticed that on Gizmo earlier this week. So that's why I kind of got out of Gizmo. I was like, this thing looks like it's gonna really dip, and it did. And we were talking about it last week. Like it was up so much, like, and we were saying like how can Gizmo retrace by 50%? And it's like, yeah, absolutely. And it pretty much did. And now it's rebounding. But like anytime there's people sitting on so much unrealized gains, and you're sitting on unrealized gains too, guess what? It's going to be a race to who like goes out there and realizes those gains first, right? And then the rest of you guys are going to be sitting on, oh man, I should have sold. And I think I don't want to put myself in that position during this cycle. Like I kind of like want to always be selling and like be aggressive with taking profits because I just think there's always going to be more plays, and then I'm always gonna keep a moon bag because you never want something to like run away and you sold all of it and you're like that bonk guy who sold like 4 figures worth of SHIB and now it's worth 8 figures. So you want to always keep a moon bag, but
What a
you always got to be
legend.
taking profits.
Yeah, I actually I think it's like sometimes we'll see something really pump and then we're like, "Oh, I want to get a retrace and get back in." But sometimes it's like if we've got a good sense of like the overall runes market like we do, it's like sometimes there's not the obvious play, like something else that's already at a like really good retrace instead of trying to like chase the hot new thing that's, very volatile. So I think, yeah, it's like if you've got like a good sense of what all the top ones are, then you can kind of play around different ones. Like if you're like main bag pumps really high and then you see psychos like way down, it's like I'm just trying to stick to the ones that I actually kind of know and because that's like the edge we're going to have going into this rune cycle because all the liquidity coming in is going to be people that don't understand like the top runes and why they're the top. So I'm just like trying to stick to that as my edge because I kind of already know all the top runes and what they should be doing. So just rotating between them a bit. But also, so what's the deal with Puka? What's the bull case on Puka? Do I need a bag? Is this the Ordinal's Maxi Business pet?
Uh, It is, yeah, it is OMB related. Definitely NFA. So, if you want to get a bag or not, totally up to you. But there was a pretty good dip buy in it. I mean, it had a lot of momentum. You can just see from its place on the Magic Eden leaderboard for runes. There's a lot of interest and a lot of eyes in it. I think for me, it's just kind of like the look and feel of the rune, and just sort of seeing, a community
Yeah.
rally behind it. OMBs just have a lot of, IP in the space and a lot of active traders with some big wallets. And I think kind of just this rune idea of like it cannot be stopped has the same kind of energy I get when I see laser eye pictures. It's like you can't stop me. So I think to own that title just kind of rings nicely. I think it's got just like a good graphic and feel to it. And I wish there was a more scientific answer to it, but a lot
No,
of these
that's
runes
good.
are basically just feel based.
That's meme coin science right there. I mean, even like it almost looks underpriced if like Gizmo Kitten is 20 mil and they both came out around the same time. Like, I don't know. I feel like it could be at least half of Gizmo.
Yeah,
Yes.
I definitely go ahead.
I was just gonna say that was the point I wanted to make too. I agree with you because if you look at the holders for Gizmo and the holders for Puka, they're essentially the same amount of holders, but Gizmo's 4x higher in terms of market cap. So I could argue that Puka should be at least the same market cap.
Yeah, I've definitely found like I think it's a bit harder to do comps for runes. I think that was always like sort of my feeling out the gate is like, oh, this thing is so mispriced. But I just think like 5 million in general is small enough for a market cap that if you have enough people of a high caliber shilling it, it should be above that. I definitely think it's a little bit harder to compare them because it's like the founder of Puppets directly tweeted out Gizmo and like gave it its name, gave it the image and all that stuff. So I'm not sure where the idea for Puka came out. I'm not sure where those NFTs for Puka came out or ordinals for NFTs came out or who was like the mastermind behind all of that. But just 5 million seems like pretty cheap just compared to like a baseline thing in crypto. So I definitely think I just look at that in its own. But I don't know. It's been tough for me to compare market caps of runes. I do that with Solana if it's something that's like very easily comparable, right? Like Mudang is an animal meme. So if something new that was an animal meme came out, I would definitely be comparing it to Mudang. But I think it's just a little bit harder with the context of like
Yeah.
puppets just have a lot of meminess to them already. Definitely don't disagree with the thought process, but rather than viewing it of like compared to Gizmo, I just say like, yeah, 5 million seems pretty low, especially if it was just at 10 million last week.
Like, on that note, not to keep going on about Psycho, but, this chart foo guy, he's everyone's shilling it. It's getting bridged to Solana, so I think people will actually start maybe referencing some of these memes in market cap to, like now they're like, "Oh, well, Psycho's 6 mil and it's on Solana, but it's a rune," you know? So I'm keen to see how these bridges play out with the Sol integration. Could be pretty crazy.
Yeah, I'm very curious too, because like I know we've seen that with a few different projects before. I know sometimes it sort of like spreads the ecosystem in a weird way where like the market cap on Solana will just constantly be reflecting a different price. So I hope they set it up in a way where we can just get a sense of like the entire ecosystem. So it doesn't seem like, oh man, the ecosystem for Bitcoin's depreciating, but maybe it's just people bridging over. So as long as it just reflects like the whole ecosystem, I think we'll be all right. But there's definitely I've seen people bridge before, and I don't always think it's bullish. I don't think it's bearish by any
Yeah.
means, but I just see a lot of people talking about bridging sometimes like it's gonna save a project or send it to Valhalla, and like a lot of times it just does nothing, to be honest.
I mean, Billion Dollar Cats has migrated over to Solana as well. I think we're just gonna see more of it. It's just kind of part of the new like rune lore and what it can do. Like here we're integrating with Solana. Solana is like the biggest meme coin market, right? So it just makes a lot of sense to like let's participate and get some of that action over there. And then you create that arbitrage and maybe people will now trade it back on Bitcoin if it's a little bit cheaper too, you know? So I think those things, 70,000 Bitcoin just hit right now, 70,000.
Sheesh.
Let's go. Congrats, Waf. You hit the price target for this week's or last week's bet. You got it.
BossDawgs is bullish.
Yeah, so like even just going to runes too, like I'm looking at the laggards, right? I mean, Arsic, man, Arsic is just lagging so bad, like
It's a bit
5.1
worried.
stats. I just don't see how Arsic is pretty much sort of like the devs in the space that kind of made everything happen pre-runes. And this is just sitting at a $75 million market cap. They're being very quiet on Twitter. All it takes is for them to like come out with one like thread on Twitter and like this thing could double up. I just think it's that easy on RSIC. But that's like one you have to be patient with. It's not going to be a quick flip, right? It's just you're kind of like beholden to when they come out and say something. But still, like probably a good one to kind of add here and there, sort of like Wizard.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there, Waf. I mean, RSIC, I just continue to see it go lower. I continue to scale into it. It's been in the top 10 since Runes launched. I don't really see it going anywhere. I definitely wish there was a little bit more communication, but again, they basically founded runes to some extent, or at least the pre-rune meta. I know Casey had been working on it, but the fact that they were like the first ones to do it and they've had this game going on in the background for a long time, I definitely think Bitcoin maxis will have a lot of appreciation for them actually building and advancing. So it's one of those plays like Quantum Cats, like, there's going to be periods of downward movement, there's going to be periods of long haul, but like ultimately I'm going to want them whenever that announcement does come out. And I think it's going to be very binary of like, you're going to see a tweet and the price will already be up 300% because it's just sending that violently. So I definitely feel pretty good, like you're saying, scaling into it. But the emphasis is on scale because I think, again, it can go much lower. And we saw with something like Billion Dollar Cat that corrected 80% and now it's back to an all time high and is like at 1.2x its all time high from last cycle. So yeah, RSIC could absolutely go down to $30 million market cap. I wouldn't be shocked, but I'm sure when the news comes out, it'll be a decent return on investment. So for that kind of play, I just continue to dollar cost average in. I, try to do it at a rate where I'm not going to end up with like too big a bag. That's what happened with Wizard. I'm happy that it worked out and I was able to cut a lot of that this cycle and just start taking profit and getting it back to a size I feel comfortable with. But yeah, sometimes you just got to dollar cost average and have conviction.
I'm kind of curious, like what kind of news are you like expecting that might come out from them that could turn it around?
I would expect them to announce what the actual runes themselves do because all of the different R6 have, different symbols and you kind of been accruing these points in the background. So I think them saying this one did this and this symbol did that, and here it leads to a larger picture and it was all some game and there's actually like an output of that game. I think something that would incentivize people to then reevaluate where the floor's at, buy the ordinals, try to mine more runes, or like see if the runes convert into something else. But basically, just some form of Ponzi where you want to acquire the asset because it's going to lead to a new form of asset is what I would be hopeful for. And they haven't like directly alluded to it, but the creators of RSIC have said, Rune Dev has said like just hang tight, it's coming. So I think at some point we'll get a pretty big announcement.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be like a DeFi or some kind of swap or some type of casino gambling, or just even make an announcement on sort of like season 2 tokenomics. I just think once they say something, um, it'll move. I know a lot of like big accounts are sitting on massive amounts of RSIC and they've been holding and some have been adding. So I just expect something big to happen. And then just to kind of go back to Wizard, I don't think I've been bullish enough on Wizard, honestly, because I just think the potential for it is so huge. And I think I underestimated how big Wizard could possibly be. So I think that's like another one I want to get myself like in a firm position and get my position held before that conversion from BRC to Rune, because I think Wizard can like really run, and trading runes is a lot easier than trading BRC 20s, and trading runes is about to become that much simpler too. So if they could kind of coordinate and time this Magic Internet Money drop with that name with the swap on Magic Eden, while at the same time, like that could be pretty prolific in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. Where's Pocket Change? Let me see if he's in here. No, he's not here. But dude, I totally agree. Like that was my biggest position. It still is my biggest position. I just see it as like the ultimate beta play for Bitcoin, but it's a beta play, and like I think it could potentially be the largest rune once it migrates fully, because it is just such a large meme. And I'm sure people have talked about magic internet money referring to Bitcoin or just crypto as a whole without really knowing the origin of it or the origin of the meme. And I think people from lots of different ecosystems will flock to get into it once that path is actually cemented. So yeah, I definitely, wish I bought more of that dip. It got down to about $1 and really just rebounded from there. So I totally agree. I continue to buy dips on it, and I do have a portion of my bag that's dedicated to swinging it. I do think Wizard is a really interesting one because it is on BRC. You see a lot of price manipulation from whales, but I think it's actually a positive thing if you're looking to just swing trade it. So my method for those listening, and I've talked about Wizard before as being a decent swing trade op. It's the same strategy as trading puppets or node monkeys in terms of just waiting for those low ranges. But what people will do is like there are people who own 100,000 plus Wizard, and they'll sometimes brick the floor just to get people to list lower. So someone will list like one whole Bitcoin worth of Wizard at once, and most people are not going to be buying that. So you can just have like 5 to 10 orders of like one Bitcoin blocks, and people will implement those. You'll see whales list it from time to time, and it'll instantly drop the price like $1. And then smaller accounts will start to list like 500 Wizard at once, right? So you had these huge blocks of like 10,000 plus Wizard. The price drops $1. People get shaken out. Now there's 500 Wizard at the floor, $1 cheaper than like what these blocks are listed at. You can scoop those cheap bits that people list, and then a lot of times the whales will try to scoop those small blocks and just remove their listings. But like at least 5 times over the past few weeks have a few whales just brick the floor to move it down $1, and then they bring it right up. So definitely pay some attention to the wizard chart or just sort of the floor. But there's a really good play to be made there. You know, it's nothing crazy, but you can make $500 to $1,000 in like a couple days pretty easily. And it's a position that I believe enough in where if the price goes lower, I'll just continue to buy more. But yeah, I've been doing that. I just try to swing trade dollar price movements. I'll sell it when it goes back up a dollar, but it's like a nice $500 to $1,000 win, depending on how you play it. So you know, if you're not watching Wizard, get it in there. It's a cool scalp.
You know, the other thing I'll say to that is like, I bought some of the Bitcoin Wizard Ordinals, and now at $6, and Bitcoin Wizard Ordinals get 5% of the allocation of Magic Internet Money. So that's roughly like 0.08 Bitcoin per ordinal. So like, and the floor is like 0.139. So you're basically paying, call it 0.06 for an ordinal, and then you get the Magic Internet Money allocation. And then you're talking about when this rune goes to like a billion, because right now I think it's what, $150 million market cap at this valuation. When Magic Internet Money goes to $1 billion, then what are Bitcoin Wizard Ordinals going to be at? There's only 1.3 thousand, right? 1.3K supply. It's the biggest meme on Bitcoin, only 1.3 thousand, and it's gonna be $1 billion rune market cap. I mean, like these things could be a Bitcoin each, possibly. It would make sense.
Yeah, 100%. I've like done it before and then I don't have it anymore, but I got to figure out the calculations of like what is fair value for the wizard. I assume it's slightly over the allocation, but I know so the BRC20 gets 95% of the wizard drop. So 5% for those wizards. So I got to figure out like how many wizard ordinals are there? What does that calculate to like wizard per ordinal? Because I know that there is like some metric of, hey, if wizard goes below this price or above this price, the wizard is a buy. If not, the BRC20 is the buy. So I just got to figure that out, and maybe I can do that today and then figure that out and report back in MBHQ to give that metric.
Yes, I saw a Twitter thread with someone breaking that down. I'm gonna have to go back and try and find that, and I'll send it to you.
I appreciate it. Yeah, that I definitely think is something to keep a lookout for. But I totally agree. I mean, I think just knowing that they're going to get the airdrop and the floor is thin, it's a great play long term. I also think it's a really good scalp. And I know I talk about scalps a lot, but I think we've just seen enough chop in crypto this year, and I do think the market is a lot more spread out than it has been in previous years. So I'm a big advocate of like taking profit where you can get it. And I'm not saying like don't hold a bag, right? For Wizard though, my strategy is like have 1,000 that you're willing to sell, because oftentimes once you sell it, you have a really good opportunity to buy back in. So I really do like to have that like layer approach, because it doesn't just like put me in a box of I need to hold it all or nothing. I've been in that situation before with ordinals, and it didn't make me feel great selling something and then watching it go higher. So I feel a lot better now selling for profit. And then if it goes up higher, awesome. I'm still making more with my remaining bag. And if it goes lower, then great. I have like some liquidity I just freed up and some profit and can, get in at a better cost. So, to each their own, but I definitely think scaling in and out of stuff, especially with runes, makes a lot of sense because you have the flexibility to do that.
Agreed. Always about perspective. All right, so I just linked the upcoming kind of things going on Bitcoin this week. I don't know if you had time to look at these, but I'm just gonna highlight like the major one, which is basically Memento Mori, which is a rune that's being dropped by Casey. Half of the mint is already, well, I should say half of the total runes are pre-mined and will go to his Hell Money podcast subscribers. So people were like basically subscribing like crazy this past week, and it kind of shut down his Patreon because I think he got so many subscribers. Because they want to kind of like get that memento mori. So this is gonna mint sometime between Halloween and the day after, and stats are expected to be like over 1,000. So it's gonna cost you like a lot of money to try and mint this. So if you are going to mint this, just be cognizant of that fact that it's gonna cost you a shit ton of money to mint this thing.
Oh wow, damn! I didn't even realize we had a Casey root on the on the menu here. Yeah, man. Talking about catalysts and like waiting for a mover, this could be it. I definitely know Casey's just got founder of Runes, founder of Ordinals. Like he definitely has a pretty big pull in the community. So could see that going pretty crazy. We'll see what happens. I know Casey has launched runes in the past, and I know he initially planned on releasing the first 10, decided against it. So it definitely seems like with his subscribers, that's cool that he's giving some money away, but would also view this as him like making some money. So I think it's a slam dunk. Like I would definitely try to go for it or play secondary. It might honestly be better just to wait for secondary because like the SAT price, exactly to your point, WAF, is going to be bonkers for the mint out. So you might end up not getting any of them, which would kind of suck if you paid all that gas and just lost it. So you might want to just wait for like the price to chill out a little bit on Sats. And for a lot of these mints on runes lately, it's been just much cheaper to buy them on secondary like a few minutes later. I think it's a great play, but I will also just say, keep an eye on Casey because if he starts releasing like a rune a day, which I wouldn't hold against him because he does have slight grifter vibes. No shade, but some shade. If he just continues to launch rune after rune, I think that would water it down a lot. So, just be cognizant of that. I wouldn't hold it past Casey to just launch a lot of runes and try to get money.
Yeah, I agree with that. So I will be looking for secondary on that one, that's for sure. And then we do have Inscripedia, which if you recall, that's sort of like the book meta. So the first drop will also be a book about Casey Rodomar. So that's coming out this week, tomorrow actually. That was a mint that was pushed back from a few weeks back, I think, because their Discord got hacked and everything. So that one's pretty hype. I think that's gonna probably do well, but well to a new collection, right? We've seen what's happened with these new collections. So for me, these are not flipping like making a play type of moves anymore. Like if I have a guaranteed mint, I'll mint my one, and it's like basically free, and I'll sit on it. But I'm not looking to sweep these or do anything like that.
Nice, Wav. I think that's a great play, dude. I mean, I definitely like the concept of it a lot. It's an interesting narrative. Like, I'm not really sure how I feel about the whole PDF on chain. Like, it certainly makes sense, but there's a billion books out there, so what is going to be the value of that protocol when you don't need it most of the time? And I think that's kind of where crypto is interesting because you sort of see like speculation meets up with practicality or utility, and you kind of like take a median of both, and some things stick and some things don't. But you know, we've just seen a lot of different iterations of it. I put it pretty akin to like photography NFTs or music NFTs. Historically, they haven't done great. It's not to say that there aren't that some do well. Like I'm sure there's going to be some PDFs that do very well, but I'm not sure if that means like books out the gate every launch is going to be successful. So I love your approach to playing it. Just mint it if you got it, but not necessarily sweeping a whole lot of them.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, like sometimes like this utility is sort of like not necessary, but it's created. And it's a question of whether or not it's gonna catch on again. Like you don't need to book vacations through a crypto token, right? Like so you don't need to read a book, on Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, completely agree. But I am just waiting for someone to put up instructions for things they shouldn't in book form on Bitcoin. That is going to be pretty problematic, and I can promise you that is going to happen.
So the other one that caught my eye on this list, and shout out to JD for sending this list by the way, is Nullish Block 9 Mint. And I haven't like really dove deep into that, but Nullish has always been big in the Bitcoin scene. He's pretty much like I want to say like ZK slash OMB adjacent with his Nullish collections. So I can see that Block 9 Mint doing pretty well as well.
Yeah, great shout out there, and shout out to JD as well, man. Really appreciate you as always putting these together. I do think Nolish is going to be one to watch out for because they had a ton of stuff previously or collections that did really, really well. So I definitely think Nolish is a good one too to look out for.
Yeah, and that's it for me really. I don't really think anything else is as far as minting is too significant. If you do have pups, there's a migrations coming to end November 5th, so you got like another week in a day, right? By next Tuesday, election day, you need to have your pups migrated over. But outside of that, I think it's just kind of all eyes on Bitcoin price for now. What do you think?
Migrated to Seoul? Sorry?
If you have it on Sol, you got to migrate it back to runes, and the BRC20 also has to be migrated to a rune.
Okay, so I can keep my runes. All good.
Yeah, you have to keep it as a rune.
Thank you.
I just think it's so funny they're, like, migrating back. It's just I guess, like, the gods did the same thing, right? It's just funny to be like, "Alright, we're migrating, now we're coming back." No, definitely appreciate Laugh. Thanks for the delayed start today. Apologies on that, just had some IRL stuff come up, but yeah, it's gonna be electric, man. Super hyped that Bitcoin crossed 70K during our episode. I'd be remiss not to mention it, always have a little short report action on there. It's just something that I like to do. But I still think it's a great time to keep your eyes open to fractal Bitcoin. Obviously, the pizza swap stuff was a catalyst, and last week I closed out of it. I still think it's just like not enough people are using fractal Bitcoin, dilutionary supply or inflationary supply where they're just continuing to mine more of it. I think those people are just going to keep dumping, but it's down like $1.50 from last week's episode. So with Bitcoin ripping to all-time highs, fractal Bitcoin, I would imagine gets a pretty decent bounce here. I would look to short it because I don't see a single person actually using fractal Bitcoin, and that's kind of what the name of the short game is looking for things that have really big valuations and not a lot of actual use. So final shout there, play it accordingly. Take it, don't take it. But I definitely think fractal Bitcoin, if it gets like a 30-40% bounce, I would absolutely just be slamming short on that. Cause again, I think it's people are bringing it up for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, I agree with that. Oh, I think we had some background sound by Oslo there. So let's see. Let's wrap it up. Bitcoin price next week. What do you got, Ross?
Oh man, let me look at the exact number right now here. I'll get a little dialed in for this one. Bitcoin at $69,920. I think 72K.
I love it. I'm gonna go. I think we're gonna break the all-time high. So I'm gonna, and which I believe was like 73.5. So I'm gonna say 74.5 is my prediction for next Monday, right before
Oh,
the election.
I love it. Dizzy, a little celeb guess here. What do you think?
I'm 74.6.
All right, the old
Love
price
it,
is
love
right.
it.
Point 1 above WAF.
It's like the
Yes,
price is right.
exactly.
No, I seriously think, like, we've had the craziest accumulation at all-time high for, like, 6, 7, 8 months. Like, we are gonna break out fucking hard soon. Like, this is, like, what the next bull cycle looks like, right? Like, it's like accumulation at all-time high for, like, excruciatingly long time, and then we break out and people are like, they've forgotten about crypto, like, but we're just chilling at all-time high, like, we're going hard.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think like, you know, to Waf's point about us getting to 100K, I think when that happens, you're gonna get a huge rotation from normies, which I usually don't really factor into pricing because I just think like, they come and go. But if Bitcoin reaches 100K, you're gonna have every single person at Thanksgiving being like, "What should I do with crypto? Like, I just saw Bitcoin reached 100K. I don't have any of it. Like, what can I buy?" So there's bound to be a ton of FOMO with a big old number like that. So I think it is going to beget more spending in the cycle at some point here.
Yeah,
Bring it
potentially.
on.
All right, on that note, Ross, I gotta jump. Great speaking to you as always, and we'll be back next Monday.
Yeah, thank you so much, Waf. I'm actually going to have to work that out with you just as an aside. I'm going to be in Japan next week, so I won't be available. But by all means, if you want to have a Waf Dog episode of Boss Dogs, would love it, and maybe we can get a guest speaker in here or something. So I'll coordinate with that with you on the side. But appreciate it as always, brother. Great talking to you and chopping it up.
Awesome, sounds good. Maybe I could grab Dizzy on for a co-host for a week or something.
Yeah, that'd be
Sure.
dope.
All right, fellas, you
Alright.
guys have a good one. I'll talk to you later.
You too, Waf. See ya. Thank you, everybody.